A beautiful evening to you this evening. Okay, in our last class, we talked about finding the LCM and HCF of larger numbers. Okay, so this evening, we are going to be looking at finding square roots of numbers. 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 Finding square roots of numbers using factor method. Using factor method. Okay. So what do we mean by square roots? Square roots in mathematics is represented by this symbol. It means that what number can you multiply by itself twice that will give you the number inside it? Let's say I have 36 now. If I'm interested in finding the square root of 36, I mean that what number can be multiplied by itself twice that will give me the number inside this symbol, and that number is 6. So we are going to be looking at how to come about this 6, how to get the values of the square roots without using your four-figure table or your calculator. Okay, I'm going to start with the very first one. I'm going to start with 36. So I will say find square roots. Find square roots of 36 using factor method. Find square root of 36 using factor method. Okay. So what do I mean? How am I going to go about it? What you are going to do is to break down this your 36 into the smallest indivisible number. The smallest number that can go in 36 that cannot be broken down again is 2. So 2 goes in 3, 1 remainder 1. 2 goes in 16, 8. 2 goes in 18, I have 9. Don't go and say 9 goes in 9 because a smaller number that can still go in 9 exists. So we say 3 goes in 9, 3. 3 goes in 1. Okay, so having gotten the factors, having written 36 down as a product of its prime factors, just like we taught in earlier classes, you will now say, okay, that means that my square root of 36 can now be written. If I don't want to write 36, I can equally write it as everything inside this bracket. Square root of 2 times 2 multiplied by 3 times 3. Is that not so? And I can equally say, based on index form I taught you, how many 2's do I have here? I have 2 raised to power 2. How many 3 do I have here? I have 3 raised to power 2. And this thing can equally be broken down from the laws of square roots. That, okay, this is equally written as, write them separately. Square root of 2 square times square root of 3 square. Are we together? So this square here is going to cancel out the square roots, as your square root is something like half. If you don't want to write square root, you could have written as 2 square raised to power half. So this 2 here cancels this 2 here. And this one is also the same as 3 square raised to power half. Your half is your square root. Is that okay? 2 cancel 2. And what are you left with? 2 multiplied by 3. And that will give us 6. And that will give us 6. So without the use of our calculator, we can get the square root of what 36 is. Or better still, instead of writing this up, just say your 2 cancels the square root. Then you have 2 times 3, that's it. So let's look at another example. Let us look at another example. Example 2. And those numbers that you can find their square roots are called perfect squares. Numbers like 36, those numbers that you can find their square root, numbers like 6, 6, 7, what is it called? 10, they are perfect squares because when you multiply them together, they will give you a number in which you can find their square root. Okay, so 36, something like 4, 4, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144, like that. They are called perfect squares because you can find their exact square roots. Okay, so let us look at another one. Using factor method. Okay, using factor method, find the square roots. Find the square roots. Using factor method, find the square root of. Let's look at a number like 144. So, without making use of our calculator or square root table, how do we find it? So, you draw your line. You break your 144 into various pieces. The smallest number that can go here is 2. 2 goes here, 7, 2. The next number, 2 goes here, 3, that's 6. The next number, 2 goes here, that's what? 18. The next number that can go 2 goes in 18, 9. The next number, 3 goes in 9, 3. The next number, 3 goes in 3, 1. Okay? So my 44, the square root of my 44 can now be written as, instead of 44, I can write it as square root of, how many 2's do I have there? 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Are we together? Okay, so we pair them in 2's. We pair them in 2's. Definitely this can be written as this 2, that's 2 square. That's 2 square. This also can be written as 2 square. And this can also be written as what? 3 square. And when you break down your square roots, we have 2 square multiplied by another 2 square, square root of 2 square multiplied by another square root of 3 square. And you can now say this, your square cancels your square root, your square cancels your square root, your square cancels your square root. So at the end of it, we have 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3. And what is 2 times 2? 4, 4 times 3, 12. And you agree with me that the square root of 144 is what? 12. 12 times 12 will give us 144. So this is how to get our square roots using square roots, using factor method. Okay, before we go, let's look at another number. Let's pick numbers like maybe 625. Okay, um example 3. use factor method use factor method to get the square roots of 625. Okay, so you take it, you draw a line, then you look for the smallest number that can go in this. This is an odd number, so 2 is out of it. 2 cannot divide it. So you check for 3. That will not give you remainder. 3 will also give us remainder. So let's settle for 5. 5 goes in 6, that's 1. Remainder 1. 5 goes in 12, that is 2. Remainder 2. 5 goes in 25, that is 5. What number can go again? 5 again. 5 goes in 12, that's 2. Remainder 2. 5 goes in 25, that's 5. The other number that can go again is 5. 5 goes in 25, 5. 5 goes in 5, 1. So my 625, my square root of 625 can now be written as what? 5 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 5. So this can be paired in twos, and I have 5 squared multiplied by 5 squared. Are we together? Okay, so and it can also be broken, like I taught you that this can be broken down differently. So square root of another 5 square, square cancel square root, square cancel square root. What are we left with? 5 multiplied by 5, this 5 and this 5, 5 multiplied by 5, and that gives us 25. And you agree with me, when you check it out, 25 multiplied by 25 will give us 625. So as our class work, use factor method, use factor method to use factor method to find the square roots. Use factor method to find the square roots of these numbers. So use factor method to find the square root of these numbers. Okay, what's the first number? The first number is okay. First number is 225. Okay. The second number is okay 100. The third number is 81, and D is 400. So do it and submit it. I await your response. Bye bye.